He's Bruce the Blog.
And he's Bazzo, and you're watching Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome again, everybody, to Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo, and we're very happy on this show to have as our special guest State Senator Greg Ball. Thank you, Senator Ball, for being here.
How are you?
Senator Ball.
It's good to see you're not in jail.
Actually, if you haven't met Senator Ball, I'd be very surprised because I think there's more than one of him, actually. He gets around everywhere in his district, as well as being in Albany, of course, in the legislature. And he also is chairman of the Veterans, Homeland, and Military Affairs Committee. Yep. And there's a lot we're going to talk about with the Senator today. We can't possibly fit everything we'd like to talk about into 30 minutes, but of course we'll have him back in the future on other shows as well. Quickly, we want to do what we do every show, and that is, thank you, Bazzo. I don't know what I would do without you, because then we'd have to change the name of the show.
That's right. That's right.
Bruce the Blog Goes. I don't know. But
I bet you those commenters on the blogs would tell you where to go.
Yeah, yes, they will tell me where to go. Yeah. Oh, and that maybe we should mention that, by the way,
Yes.
that Bazzo and I, our respective blogs, separate blogs, are now on Patch. If you go to Patch, in the Westchester Patches, Yorktown, Peekskill, Ossining, Croton, you'll see our blogs there, and you can click on them, and then it'll take you to our website, the North County News and Views website, and you can read the complete blog. And we're getting some interesting comments already.
And you can see the best of Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo on YouTube, thanks to Denise Williams.
Right, and by the time this show is being seen, the YouTube channel Bruce the Blog Goes Bazzo may be up. So,
Right.
yeah. And of course, we're talking about that the show is brought to you by the Penny Saver. Carla Chase and Frank Rich are our executive producers, and we always thank them
Very much.
for letting us be here. And we just want to do quickly a kudos of the week. We always do this. And speaking of Chase Media Group, at the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce annual dinner, which actually is at the end of the month, the end of January, we always give out every year, Carla Chase gives out in memory and honor of her father, who founded the Penny Saver, John W. Chase, the John W. Chase Award. And it goes to an entrepreneur who started in Yorktown, where the Penny Saver and Chase Media is also headquartered, and built his or her business into something really significant, starting from scratch, which is exactly what Mr. Chase did. He started out of the trunk of his car. It's one of those stories, and he built this incredible media company. And so this year we want to give a salute of the week to Barry Ross of Mohegan Lake Motors, who I think you must know, Senator Ball. Barry has been in the automobile business for 25 years now. He's a Volkswagen and Audi dealer. He does a tremendous job. He's actually one of the leading dealers, for those franchises in the country. And he also gives a lot back to the community. I know that from our own Harrison Apar Foundation. And in terms of business development, he's expanding. Actually, this year in 2012, he's going to be expanding his dealership and adding a whole other wing on Route 6 in Mohegan Lake. So we just want to, again, salute Barry Ross, who's the John W. Chase Award recipient.
I have a surprise for you.
Yes, you do?
I'm not going to do a salvo. I do have a salute, even though it's late, but I was reminded, and a gentleman named James who owns a deli at Oregon Circle off of Oregon Road, Sasalata, I believe it's pronounced.
Yeah.
They had a New Year's Eve party, and he booked transportation, so nobody had to drink and drive that night.
That's great. No, a lot more bars are doing that.
I want to salute the people like James that figured it was cheaper to pay to drive these people around than drunk driving or lawsuits for getting them drunk. I thought that was a great idea. It was a great thing they did, and I hope more people will pick up on that idea next year. If you're having a party, provide the transportation.
Yes, absolutely.
So everybody doesn't have to worry, because you know the cops are out with those checkpoints.
Right, and they should be, by the way. Yeah.
Yes.
And in fact, I just want to give a plug to my daughter, who's a senior at Oneonta, to become a teacher. She's of legal age to drink, and with her friends, they always have a designated driver. You know, if they're going out to a bar, they will not drive. They'll always have one of their friends who's not going to be imbibing or indulging in alcohol, and they will have that person drive. And so that's a good thing.
Anyway, let's go right.
Yes, I know. Right. Well, I want to start by asking Senator Ball. Again, I was sort of half joking at the beginning of the show, but it really is true, Greg, that you get around an awful lot. I mean, and I think that's probably why, if I'm not mistaken, you've never lost an election, right? Right? You've never lost an election, including primaries. We know about that. When you, I remember when I started at North County News, sort of parallels when you started, you know, with the primary for state assembly. But what, I mean, you know, quickly, if you could, what is a typical day like for you? Because I know you're all over your district. I mean, every day. You're up in Albany. You know, so what? And I know you do stay in shape. You run a lot, right? And I mean, so you must have very long days.
We, you know, we have an extremely active office and great staff, and it's taken a while to get to the point where we have the team that we have in place now. So that is a huge help. And I'm up early, typically, you know, 5:30. And either go to the gym or work out. I run about 8 miles a day.
Oh.
From who?
From you.
Right. Among other, you in particular.
I keep a picture of you in my rear view mirror, and I drive like a bat out of hell. But no, so I run, you know, 8.5 miles a day, and I'm trying to increase that. I do have a host of animals. I had a lot more over the summer, but of course it was harvest time
and you're in Brewster,
in the
right?
fall in Patterson.
Oh, Patterson.
I live on a
well, your office
farm
is in Brewster.
Patterson,
yeah, right. Patterson.
And you know, I do 5-6 events a day sometimes. You know, extremely active and try to be everywhere. You know, it's a district that goes from near the Massachusetts border down to Pound Ridge, you know, down to just north of White Plains. So you have to be everywhere, and even when you feel like you're everywhere, there are certainly people in the community who may not see you. And it's your job to be out there and be active. And because you hear the concerns, you find out needs for grants, for funding, or for legislation by being out in the community. I certainly have, you know, have tried to develop a very strong relationship with the town of Yorktown.
Yes.
And have been here since the very beginning.
Yeah. Do you know how many residents do you represent?
We have over 300,000. It's like 350,000.
Yeah.
And I don't know how redistricting is going to change that, but it probably won't change a lot in our area because the numbers have increased.
Right.
Now, in full disclosure, now you've been calling him Senator Ball, and I've been calling him Greg, and people should know that have read me over the years. Since your run against Stevens, I've always been a big supporter of yours, believing you should be in office, and I figure we've been on a first-name basis since I wasn't being rude, audience, to him. It's just that it's just so long, it's just natural. We know that you've been very public with fracking, and you just sent out a press release with the insurance companies. Would you tell the people, number one, with that topic? Because you just sent it out. I just posted it on Bazzo at work.
Well,
so let them know what to expect when they're reading it.
With the insurance companies, I mean, you have insurance companies that literally are raking in huge profits, you know, multi-billion-dollar profits. And meanwhile, we have community hospitals that are shutting down. We're losing our specialists, our doctors out of the state. So you got to wonder who's making the money. And when you look at it, the insurance companies, the large insurance companies, are doing very well. So somebody could have complete coverage, think that they're covered, have a very good policy, and end up out of network for a life-sustaining need. And in our district, we had somebody who had a cardiac, you know, life-sustaining procedure that had to be done, and they got it done, and they got a bill for over $90,000 for being out of network. So meanwhile, the doctor's not getting paid, the hospital's not getting paid. This blue-collar family, you know, is in a position of having to possibly lose their home, and the insurance company is laughing all the way to the bank. So we're making it much more transparent, so they can't hide behind that shield.
So that's what they got to expect when they read that press release you just sent out. This is and you're going to be following this up in Albany, I assume.
Yeah, and we put together a physicians advisory council. We're working with physicians throughout the Hudson Valley and then families that have been affected. And I believe that it's already passed the Assembly. Had real good support in the Assembly.
Really?
Unfortunately, the insurance lobby is extremely powerful, especially in our chamber. So it's not an easy push to get it done in the Senate, but I think we're going to get it done.
Of course, you did get behind the repeal of that horrendous MTA tax. I mean, Chase Media, as you know, is one of the larger private employers in this area, and so we're well aware of the negative impact.
So did Adam Taxi know about that MTA tax as a corporation? I had to pay it too.
Yeah, right. And I know, early on you got, behind that effort. And now it's what we were talking about, 80%, right?
80%, and I know Andy and I have had a real heated debate about this, but at the end of the day, 80% of the people who were paying the MTA payroll tax are no longer going to have to pay come, I think it's April 1st. And, this is the point. We have to continue to fight for a full repeal. We also have to continue to fight for a forensic accounting of the MTA. But the Assembly wanted to make sure that there was a sunset provision on that. We were able to actually make it permanent.
Right.
So you're talking over $250 million in savings, tens of thousands of businesses and self-employed that are going to be helped, not-for-profits. We have to continue to fight and hold the MTA accountable to actually forensically account their books, take those savings, and because there are certain people that have payroll over 1.8 million or somewhere in that area, community hospitals, not-for-profits like Park, and others in northern Westchester that are still affected, and we got to help them.
Now, and also, I just want to make the point that I know, Senator Ball, you said you made a public statement that, and you just used the phrase forensic accounting, that there could be criminal activity.
Well, that's why we need a forensic audit. There's no doubt that there is.
Before
you think there is?
Going back on your adage, never assume the audience knows what you know. Would you please tell everybody what a forensic accounting is?
Well, forensic accounting, and there is actually the problem with this is that the comptroller has come out and said, okay, well, we'll do a review. During the debate, the comptroller agreed to do a forensic accounting, meaning criminal accounting. You're actually going in and looking line by line for criminal activity and watching the revenue streams. I mean, we're talking about an authority that had two sets of books. They had mob infiltration that was documented at the construction of their headquarters down at 2 Broadway. They have cost overruns 300%, 400%, 500%. So the comptroller's done an initial review. They looked at over time. They found huge abuses, but they need to look at the entire over $10 billion authority. And they should do the same with the Port Authority.
Now, when you talk about 80% paying, not paying, and you got still 20% left, what about those MTA fees that really hurt people? The driver's license, the registration. I mean, are we going to try to handle that? I mean, let's face it, you have an MTA tax on your cell phone, on your telephone, on your cable bill, on every gallon of gas.
Well, Andy, the ones that you just mentioned before, people have to understand this. This is why elections matter. And, as the state senator in the majority, in a very closely, evenly distributed chamber. It's been very different than being the assemblyman who could be a bomb thrower in a chamber where literally, when you're in the minority in the assembly, if you're not standing on your desk and using the bully pulpit, you're not doing your damn job. And I did it, in my opinion, very effectively. And I had huge impact on the debate. In a way that we have, honestly, not to pat myself on the back, but my mother's not here, so I got to do it, in a way that you don't really see. A lot of those guys go to sleep in that chamber. When I arrived in the Senate, you have a responsibility when you have power in the way that you do as a member of the majority to actually get things done. The MTA fees that you just spoke of, as well as over $14 billion in other taxes, were all instituted in the 2 years that the New York City Democrats took control of that chamber.
I know.
And the things that we've accomplished this year, the repeal of the, and by the way, so people know, it's a 62-seat House, in the Senate. It's 30-32. We lose one vote, the lieutenant governor's the split, and the entire state would be controlled by New York City Democrats. So this isn't a partisan thing, but the bipartisan effective leadership that we've had working with the Democratic governor, the repeal of the MTA payroll tax, the balanced budget, cut state spending by 2%, lowest middle class tax rate in over, I think, 58 years, those things would not have been accomplished. And the list that you just gave would have grown. Because they would have looked towards backdoor borrowing and new taxes, hikes, and revenue increases had we not won this seat. So and I won't grandstand, but a lot of people are left to wonder sometimes, does my vote matter? And do elections matter? And regardless of personalities, had that New York City crew been given this seat,
this
governor is so thankful in my opinion, to be able to have a Republican majority in the Senate.
Even though he's a Democrat.
Even though he's a Democrat.
Right.
Because if you look at what has been accomplished, the folks that were controlling the chamber a year prior would not have worked with this governor.
Well, I told you before.
Right. And you've been both critical and supportive of him.
Governor
Cuomo.
You know, people, sometimes people in the media, they ask me on a particular issue, this one, look, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes Andy applauds me, sometimes he attacks me.
I attacked you once
and
in
that's
6
okay.
years.
And that's okay.
I attacked you once
okay.
in 6
and
years.
The same thing with Governor Cuomo. When Governor Cuomo pulled New York State out of the Secure Communities program,
right.
I felt that was wrong. When Governor, when we worked to redo the tax code, where Andy, hit me on that, I thought, and literally everybody this year will be paying less taxes than last year percentage-wise, and we were able to deliver to close the gap and at the same time cut middle-class taxes to the lowest point in over 50 years. I applauded the governor, and his ability, his leadership ability, has been amazing.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball now, Senator Bowles. Do you think, in the future, he's presidential timber?
I do. I think if he continues, this year is going to be very tough, for him. There's no doubt that there's some sort of rift between he and Shelley Silver.
Yes.
Shelley Silver has always been able to crack governors like a,
Also a Democrat.
Now, but we're seeing that now with this education. You have about 10 districts, including New York City, because that's the papers, the New York City papers, going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars in funding because there's this accountability issue that should be a no-brainer. You're accountable to your voters. You're accountable to Carl and Frank. I'm accountable to my customers. Police are accountable to the chief and to the to the people that pay the public.
Yeah.
Where is it written that teachers are the sacred cow that should not be held accountable? And how much of this, because I saw the riff in the paper with Silver and Cuomo on this, how much of this is coming out of the Assembly?
Well, I think that moving into this year, it's going to be very interesting to watch. The governor has proven an uncanny ability to move Albany forward in a way no other governor has. If he can continue that, I believe that he will be president of the United States, or at least be the nominee, and he will deserve it. Now, moving into this year, I think it's going to be the crucial test. Can he continue to develop that tenuous relationship with Shelley Silver and move him forward without...
At the end of the day, are we going to lose the money?
I think, I really don't know. It's going to take, if you're talking about his relationship with our House, even when we have disagreements with the governor, even when I have disagreements with the governor, they're based upon mutual respect. Now, if he has got to continue to develop that relationship with the Assembly in the same way.
But why is accountability this big thing about accountability? It's got to be a no-brainer. You're talking children here.
I'll tell you why it's an issue, and you're not going to like this. You're right. We do have our education system is not taking care of our kids. We are not developing children and young men and women that can compete in the global economy. We all know that. We're spending more money than we ever have, and the results are the worst. Okay? We all get that. But when you begin to speak about specifics, when you talk about good young teachers who are doing the best they can, and I have a lot of friends who are teachers, young men and women that are working their butts off every single day. And if they get a good group of kids, they're able to accomplish great things. If they get a less than possible stellar group of kids, they can still accomplish great things, but it may not be to the same level. So my point is this. There are rank-and-file teachers who have real concerns about being graded
about the methodology, right?
To the children.
But that's the issue.
What is the fairest methodology to rank teachers?
It's not the teachers it's not the teachers. I drive a number of them. Yeah. The accountability with them is not the
crazy.
Yeah, that too. But it's not the accountability that gets them. It's the leadership. That
the teachers'
is
union you're talking
right,
about,
the leadership of the union that's standing in the way, because this money is supposed to go to those schools where these teachers are overwhelmed with less than stellar students, and give them the resources to lift them up.
We finally reached a point, certainly as a nation, but even as a state, in this really liberal state, where people realize that the children are the only ones in the entire process that don't have a lobbyist. The children are the only ones that really don't have a union.
Well, their parents, I mean, they do have their parents.
Yeah, but the parents, the problem with the parents, and you could see it in the school board
parents are very
votes.
busy. Parents are busy paying their mortgage payment. They're busy keeping a roof over their head, and they most make the basic assumption that if they they do send their children to school, that those schools are going to do the right. Right. But we have a process, that is a large industry. The education industry in New York State is huge, where the teachers' unions do. Their job is to protect the rights of the teachers and get as much money as they possibly can.
I was recently watching Morning Joe. I always watch Morning Joe.
Great
Joe
show.
Scarborough. It is a great show.
Best show on TV.
And I have to tell you, that's right. It's very close, right? And Joe Scarborough, and then everybody else. He had Ed Rendell as a regular guest, the former governor of Pennsylvania, and of course Willie Geist and they all universally came out really excoriating the teachers' unions. Just to a point that you were making, I mean, Joe Scarborough was saying he feels what really gets him agitated is the teachers' unions protect mediocrity.
Right.
That when it's been presented to him, and Mayor Bloomberg of New York City has now been doing this. He's very aggressive in wanting to reform the education system, and he's saying. He's proposed we will reward the best teachers with a $20,000 increase in their annual pay, and the teachers' union is saying no.
Right.
So so Joe Scarborough is saying, how can you refuse rewarding the best teachers, which encourages them to get better?
What gets me is the rank and file is not speaking up out against their leadership that is selling them out.
It's a very powerful union.
I know, but
it's
only as powerful as the rank and file allows it to be. Silence is assent.
It's possibly the most powerful union in the state of New York. And this governor, it's going to be very interesting to see, are we going to have a pragmatic conversation, or is the Assembly going to allow complete ideology and petty money politics?
That's what I was going back to. How much of this is the Assembly?
You know something? We should move on.
I do want to.
Plus, hydrofracking is also on the agenda.
But I want to get to something else that I haven't seen anything from you on. What part of Governor's speech is to allow casino gambling in New York State. Before we go into where he wants to put it, your initial
we
about casino gambling.
We allow gambling in New York State as it is, but we limit it. And I understand folks' concerns, but it can be a huge economic generator, and especially if it's done well.
So you would vote in favor of casino gambling in New York?
I would like to see something possibly done on the Hudson River and the Hudson River
That's
Capital.
where I wanted to go.
Which has been proposed before.
This is what
I don't know if it has been proposed. In fact, we're doing research on it right now, but it could really be a huge win for the river towns like Peekskill and Poughkeepsie.
They want to go out to this aqueduct that's out there on Long Island.
Right.
And nobody wants to go to Long Island from the rest of the country.
The race, you're talking about Aqueduct Racetrack.
No,
he's talking about the project out in the city that they're
but it's out more towards Queens and all that.
But this would open it up.
But what I'm trying to say is, who wants to go out there from Nebraska? They want to go where people is. Why don't they look for places like I saw in the paper at Markowitz, the borough president of Brooklyn? Coney Island's a great location for this. Or I think, why aren't we looking at Westchester County for this? Because it's so convenient to the city and as a hub of mass transit, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
And we're going to get very active as an office, and as the governor's put the discussion out there, and now it's up to us.
And this is a discussion you're in favor of on this one, because it's driving me nuts watching people every day go to Atlantic City, go to Mohegan Sun. That money should be here in New York, employing our people, not Connecticut's people. Let them find another way to earn a living.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Well, what about the Catskills? Right?
The Catskills, that to me would have should have been where it should have gone.
Right, exactly.
Is in the Catskills. There's a dying area.
Right.
And talking about dying areas, and now we're going to segue into your topic, the Southern Tier, fracking, Marcellus Shale.
I've brought some fracking fluid for you, back from Pennsylvania. If you wouldn't mind just taking it.
Wouldn't bother me.
It's totally fine. It's great. The industry says you can drink this stuff.
You were in the military service. My father was a cook in the Army. I've drank an Army coffee. That can't be any worse than Army coffee. So, I try to tell you behind the scenes.
In the Air Force, we had
this is Syracuse University coffee. Number one team in the country. I have to plug my alma mater.
What bothers me in this discussion, and this is and like I said, one time I disagree. 6 years. One time I disagree with you, and you hate for it.
Well, I don't.
But no, I'm joking when I say the wrong word. But I'm kidding. But the point is every time, and I'm watching this with the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah. You're watching this with casino gambling. Every time an idea comes up, the first thing is you can't do it because. Businesses succeed. I succeeded in business. I succeeded when I worked for other people. I succeeded when I worked for Bruce. They come up with an idea, and my initial response is, okay, how do we make it work?
Can I address
Not that? How we're not going to make it work.
So let me address that. First, okay, in Truth in Advertising, in the Assembly, I was the only Republican and the first Republican to ask for a moratorium in the Assembly.
As you reminded me.
Truth in Advertising, you supported me in earnest back then, and that was still one of my credentials. Now let me say this. I'm not saying that we can't because. I'm saying that we can if we do X. And that's a huge difference, and it's a constructive dialogue. And when I had people, they would come to me in Albany, and those folks from the industry, many of them from places like Texas, I got along with them well. That they're the only ones in Albany that when they were there, they looked at my boots, they knew they were Lucchese's from Austin. I loved them, okay? And they would say, you can drink the fracking fluid, you can bathe in it, it's the best stuff on earth. Andy, you're going to have to give me more than 30 seconds. So
I'm not saying
take a chill pill, whatever you got to do.
I was reaching for my glasses.
Then there were those who were against fracking. And they did not look like people I knew. In fact, they looked like folks that probably tried to vote against me twice on election day. Okay,
on the same election day.
Right? And exactly. Okay, and I would leave wondering, and they would tell me diametrically opposed things, and I would be like, "Who the hell's lying to me?" So then I said, it's a busy session. We had a lot to do. I said, I'm going to go to Pennsylvania and look at this firsthand. I met with farmers. I met with sportsmen. I met with some very left environmentalists that I'm like, you know what? I'm not following you here. And I met with some people that private property owners that got hurt, and I saw some good stuff. I saw economic activity. I saw job creation. There were some questions on that, which I can dive into at another time. But I saw some bad stuff. And in Pennsylvania, because of that Halliburton loophole, it's inherently a state issue of how we're going to regulate the industry. Pennsylvania said, let's frack, and we'll catch up on regulation. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the regulation. And there are farmers and sportsmen and private property owners that are getting hurt. And I've seen it firsthand. So as a responsible legislator, there is no way in hell that I'm going to allow what happened in Pennsylvania to happen in the same way in New York State. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but you don't lay out the red.
But also, what about how some of the people around here, and I'm sure you've heard it, Senator Ball, have said, like, in terms of Yorktown and this whole area, there wouldn't be any of that going on anyhow, right? There would not be hydraulic fracturing.
Yeah, but it's still on. First, there are, because of the depth of it and the way that the plates come together in New York State, there's no question there are questions to whether there could be contamination in the years ahead. People who don't understand
that would affect us here.
Yes, people who don't understand the process. You're talking about 10 billion gallons a day of water that's used in Pennsylvania. 10 billion gallons of clean water. They turn that into an industrial waste. 80% of that water, billions and billions, stays under the Earth's surface. So as a responsible legislator, if we're going to allow this process in New York, if we're putting 80% of billions and billions of industrial waste into the Earth's surface, what happens 10 years from now, 100 years from now, 500 years from now?
Sort of like Agent Orange, that kind of. 20, 30 years later, and people,
there are real questions to this process, and we're stepping through it as a responsible legislator. I'm not going to come back 50 years from now when I'm old and meet with people who say, you allowed this, you contaminated the water supply, the farmers were hurt, sportsmen are hurt, and I have seen it firsthand in Pennsylvania where they have trout kills, they have livestock that have been contaminated, people's properties have been devalued by 90%, and guess what the industry says? The industry says, you know what, your home's been devalued by 90%?
So you're saying you think there may be some merit in the technology, but it has to be regulated and there have to be rules.
The technology hasn't gotten to the point yet where it needs to be, but there have been improvements in the technology.
Right.
But even by industry standard, they show a failure rate that at this point is cause for concern.
Okay, right.
And when there is contamination or they do hurt a private property owner, and other states are not being held accountable. That's why I've introduced the legislation to properly regulate the industry in a way that they will be held accountable. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but you don't hurt people needlessly in the process.
Right. Any final thoughts? Must we do have to wrap it up?
I know we have to wrap it up, and I've let you have your say, and I'm going to let it stay with that for
We can talk about it. We can do it on the show.
That's what we will.
We'll do it on the show.
We will do another show.
Or I may do it in a column. But
Is that a promise or a threat?
But no. I mean, it is what it is, because I still want to cover one thing else. And you told me how important
Okay, we have to wrap it up. We have to wrap it up, Andy. We have to wrap it up.
Okay.
We'll do another show.
We'll get cut off, so do your wrap.
I'll do my wrap. These were my opinions. You may beg to differ.
And when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk, including state senators.
Thank you, Greg, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You better
Thanks
make it
watching.
sooner than later to come on the show.
Whenever you want.
Promise?
Yeah.
Political promise or real promise?
We can do it right now.
That's good.